Jamie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Outsiders. Now if you don't know, Outsiders is a new show to go on to Dave. It's now finished its first series and basically it sees David Mitchell set a bunch of survival tasks to comedians and then they do the tasks and whoever wins get little badges. And recently it's drawn a lot of attention because of its similarities to Taskmaster, including a rather scathing review by The Guardian. So this video is just going to be looking at whether or not it is a copy of Taskmaster or whether it's trying to replace Taskmaster. And yeah, look at the similarities, the differences, and also whether I think it is a good show. So Outsiders is on Dave, which was the channel that originated Taskmaster. It was the one that first aired Taskmaster. And obviously recently it's moved over to Channel 4, so it makes sense that they're looking for a new comedy show to kind of replace that gap that Taskmaster had. First of all, similarities straight away. It was on Dave, it's comedians doing tasks, challenges, stuff like that. And also 5 out of 6 of the contestants, so 5 out of 7 of the people on the show have been on Taskmaster, including 3 champions. So for those who don't know, I've got Ed Gamble, Lou Sanders, Jessica Knappett, Jamali Maddix, Kerry Godliman, and the 6th contestant who hasn't been on Taskmaster is Toussaint Douglas. And then also they have a very big prominent comedian judging them at their efforts in the tasks, and this is David Mitchell. David Mitchell is someone who said that he would probably never go on Taskmaster. He's been offered to go on, but it's not something he'd ever see doing. And also his wife is currently on Taskmaster Series 12. So yeah, David Mitchell sets these comedians challenges. They're paired off in groups of 2, so it is Ed and Lou, Jessica and Jamali, and then Kerry and Toussaint, and they do challenges. Now these aren't challenges that are like Taskmaster, a few of them are, but they're more based on survival. So we've got things like chop down a tree, first aid challenges, and like sillier ones like cutting somebody's hair and things like that. So yeah, right away there are similarities. There's comedians doing tasks that are silly and they're doing it in a funny way. So I can definitely understand why the comparison has been made. When I first heard about the show, my thoughts immediately went to, I'm probably gonna like this because it sounds a bit like Taskmaster. And yeah, so I definitely understand the comparison. Yeah, I think the comparison is also further justified when we kind of look at the fact that David is taking on the role of like an authoritarian judge who sets these challenges and then the comedians have to like state their case, say why their attempt was better, and then David will give them points, or in this case badges, that will then go on their they've got like a little bit like triangle, so at the end of the show whoever's got the most badges wins. There is also like a very similar eccentric chaotic like style and energy to the show. It's definitely not surprising why former Taskmaster contestants who like really loved the experience on Taskmaster would want to do Outsiders, because it definitely is the same kind of very silly chaotic style. Obviously a bit of a difference with the fact that these are skills that a lot of people could have, whereas with Taskmaster there's very just wild out there kind of skills. So the differences, so even though they've got very similar chaotic energy, I would say they have got different styles. Outsiders for me kind of is a mix between like glamping, especially with David's like tent thing, mixed with kind of like the Scouts. Obviously with like the badges and everything, there is definitely nods to Scouts there, or very direct references to Scouts, or like Girl Guides and stuff like that, which is very different to Taskmaster, which is obviously very different to Taskmaster, who they do take a different theme each series, but generally it's a lot kind of like brighter and quirky, especially with the kind of decorations in the house. And while there is a sense of that in Outsiders is a lot more based on kind of like military, old-fashioned, playing up to kind of like David's characteristics and what he likes, which definitely makes a lot of sense. And yeah, as I said, the tasks are more based on survival and stuff that you might see being done in Scouts and stuff like that. So as I said before, we've got things like cut down a tree, first aid, camouflage yourself and then the other team has to try and find you, which is my personal favourite task, I think. Milking a goat, and then you then have to make pancakes out of the goat's milk. And yeah, there's also like more creative tasks. So you've got like make a motto, make a flag, make a religion, stuff like that, which those ones to me are more Taskmaster-esque, because they do rely on like creativity and they're a bit more out there. And yeah, again, they had to like justify it to David and like kind of like present to the class. So they are still silly, that's undeniable. A lot of the tasks are very silly, and they are like, but they are kind of based around survival, especially like cutting down the tree. That's in like the first episode, so that's very much very different to Taskmaster. It's very simple tasks, but like ones that I think tasks that everybody would think, yes, I can cut down a tree, but actually faced with the fact that they have to cut down a tree would like fail at the first hurdle. That's what Outsiders is to me. And Taskmaster in a sense has things where it's like that, I could do that easily, but they more focus on tricks and like loopholes in the tasks and things like that, and you know, wild plot twists really. Whereas Outsiders, it's just showing that these survival skills are a lot harder than you may originally think. Even though a lot of the contestants are from or have been in Taskmaster, it is done very differently. So as I said before, they're paired up in teams. None of the contestants do anything individually. It is all team based. All of the teams have great chemistry, and I couldn't have paired them up any better than they have. I think what they've done is perfect. Jamali and Jess are my personal favourites. They're just brilliant. Jess just screams Jamali's name like all the time. I think they have like such inventive ideas. Again, with the camouflage task, I think they were exceptional in that. Then my personal favourite, Lou and Ed, have an interesting dynamic because again, Ed is very competitive, and I was expecting Lou to be very competitive as well, especially because of how she was on Taskmaster, even like a bit too competitive for my liking at some points. But this, she kind of just took on a demeanour that she didn't care, that she was just like unbothered by it all, and then contrasted with Ed, who was so competitive and wanted to win all the time. It was a very funny comparison, and they worked very well together. And then Kerry and Toussaint, I don't really know how to describe them, but they get along great, and I'm always interested to see what they do. But yeah, Jamali and Jess are the strongest ones for me. And it's definitely not as competitive as Taskmaster. I would say generally they are more relaxed, and I would say a lot of the time they're not trying to beat the other teams, they're just trying to like impress David. There is still like tension there between the teams at some points, especially at the end while they're like discussing who gets the badges. I think the teams can kind of like turn on each other, but then also kind of back each other up quite a bit. So yeah, did I like it? I did. I thought it was very entertaining. I was excited each week when we got a new episode. One thing I liked about it is that it did take place over the course of like a couple of weeks, I think, or maybe just a week, but they, as far as I know, unless it was just like edited that way, they appeared to be actually sleeping outside, camping outside for the duration of the show, which I think was a great addition. It definitely felt like, again, they roughen it up for a few weeks to like, you know, do these tasks. Then obviously the point was that David got to go home to his nice comfy house while the rest of the contestants were, you know, sleeping in tents. Which I thought was a great addition. It definitely added a different thing to Taskmaster. I can imagine Taskmaster being a lot different if they were kind of like not trapped, but like if they had to like stay in the house for like 2 weeks and film all their tasks in those 2 weeks. I also liked that we had the contestants continuously interact with each other, because I loved like the team tasks and Taskmaster, so I like that we had that all the way through Outsiders, and it didn't take away from like the individual performances from anybody, because every single contestant had like standout moments, which it was fantastic to watch. So I'm just going to look at kind of like the criticism at this one Guardian article, and obviously everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but basically it's saying it's a good show, but it will always fail in comparison to Taskmaster, which is a fair point, because Taskmaster, I think, has like reinvigorated the comedy game show genre, and I love that. But I feel like it exists outside of Taskmaster. I imagine they did kind of embrace that comparison at first, especially with getting ex-Taskmaster contestants, because if people like Taskmaster, they're going to watch it if they see their favourite comedians in it. But I think it is very fair to say that the show is different to Taskmaster. It's not a copy, I would say, but it's different, because I feel like by saying that Outsiders is a copy of Taskmaster leads to us saying that any kind of comedy game show where contestants do challenges is a copy of Taskmaster, where necessarily that isn't the case. I would say it's definitely influenced by Taskmaster. Yeah, so basically what Jewett Heritage, he did this Guardian article, which I think I saw a lot of people talk about. So he says, Dave's new comedy entertainment format feels like a little like the result of a long consultation about how close a television programme can legally be to Taskmaster without actually being Taskmaster. So, and it's written in a way that, like, the entire article comparing each thing to Taskmaster, when you look at it from a distance, a prominent comedian is setting tasks to comedians that are silly, and then they are judged on how they perform in those tasks. Yes, that sounds exactly like Taskmaster, but it is different. It's so different. I was expecting it to be more similar to Taskmaster, but like the whole kind of like format of the show is different. So obviously in Taskmaster, the tasks are done weeks in advance, then they all come down to the studio and Greg judges them. Whereas in Outsiders, I believe the tasks are all done in one day. That, not all in one day, but like the episodes are all done in one day. That might be completely wrong, but that's the impression that I get. And then at the end of the day, they judge those efforts. So it tends to be 3 tasks and then the judging. So that's kind of how it's done. There's not really any kind of part of the set of the aesthetic that really reminds me too much of Taskmaster, apart from like the eclectic style of like David's tent, kind of similar to like the house. But again, I don't think it's too reminiscent of Taskmaster. But in the sense that it is a game show with comedians doing challenges, then yes, that is similar to Taskmaster, but we could link that to loads of different shows where comedians are doing challenges. But yeah, I'm incredibly excited to, if there are any future series of Outsiders. I haven't heard anything yet, but yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Yeah, I would definitely recommend if you haven't seen it. And yeah, thank you very much for watching this video. Comment down below what you thought of Outsiders and whether or not you think it is a copy of Taskmaster. Why not? I'm very interested to hear what you think. If you like this video, then please give it a like, it's very appreciated. And if you want to see more videos about British comedy shows and Taskmaster in particular, then give me a subscribe and I'll have more videos out for you soon. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.